All right, guys, today's guest is Rob Ferretti. I've known Rob for quite a few years now. He's one of the OG social media YouTubers, doing it before YouTube. Car guy, has had every kind of supercar and rental companies and all kinds of cool stuff. You don't really need much of an introduction if people have been on YouTube long enough, but Rob, you're back down. You're back in Florida. I feel like you haven't been here in a little while, is it?
I come and go, but I'm generally an East Coast Florida guy. So I go down to Miami or Daytona. So I generally don't make it over to the West Coast, but I was close enough that I definitely had to stop in.
That seems like your normal deal because we're kind of on different wavelengths almost, because I'm in like the modified performance world. You're in like the OEM supercar world, I would say.
Yeah, I mean, more
or modified stuff, the Supra, the Corvette, those have all had their ups and downs throughout the years.
I've sort of learned. I mean, I feel like every guy goes through this like love-hate relationship with their project car where they put so much money into it and then they're like, now I'm never going to sell it because I'm so buried in this thing. It's just going to be my bad mistake I live with forever. But I used to modify cars back in the day. This is like early 2000s, late 90s, where they needed it. Yeah. Like the level of performance wasn't up to what our bodies were like.
Such a gutless car that was performance.
But we just needed more. I mean, it's giving somebody a 340 horsepower car. It's like, all right, like 700 feels a lot better.
Especially the Supra, because people they're like, oh my God, like a stock Supra sells for a lot of money and is valuable. But like a stock Supra is a horrible car.
It's garbage.
They're so boring.
I have complained to people like, oh, yeah, I got a 98 Supra. It's got 19,000 miles on it. And it's like a unicorn car, black, 6-speed turbo. Everyone's like, oh, if it was stock. I'm like, yeah, but the whole point of the car is it was cool because it was modifiable. So why would you expect a stock one? Wouldn't you buy a stock one and modify it just like this?
Yeah.
And it's really weird. The collector market's really weird when it comes to that sort of stuff.
None of my friends that I know personally would enjoy a stock Supra. And
no.
You had there was a video that was going around for a while of you talking about your Supra and how the 1,000 horsepower, I think, Supras don't really exist the way that people think they do.
Well, I mean, everybody who's ever like encountered lots of Supras would attest to that. A lot of Supras are like BPU or like eBay slapped together, 700 horsepower. They were always like an attainable car that you could get into for 15 grand, even 10, 15 grand to get just a MK4 chassis. And then you start throwing on the cheapest turbo kit you can find and put the biggest single turbo with eBay intake. And this turned into this big thing where like you've got these cars that just sort of fall apart and they're glued together. And a lot of them, they were capable of doing that 1,000+ horsepower, but most of them you run into are like 750, 800 when they were modified well. Otherwise, they're always like 500-600 horsepower.
And 10 years ago with the turbo that you could get, you would have to have some big...
The turbo would have to be significantly, bigger and bigger. Yeah. So it would... And the old Supra dyno sheet was always easily recognizable.
Now it's a little different because like a 76 millimeter turbo from Precision could make you that power that you want. But, turbo technology obviously changes
Came a huge,
all of that. Yeah, so kind of cheater.
Well, and then I got a chance to now do it twice because I bought a second Supra because I was finally at the point where my car is like 250, 300 grand. And I'm like, all right, I'm not going to drive this thing. It's so like, this is not a Lamb. Like I could get a brand new Lamborghini for this.
Yep.
It just doesn't make any sense. So I'm at the point where I'm ready to sell the first one, but I would just go out and get another one anyway. So I decided to buy another one first. So I bought and built a second Supra.
Yep.
Like the ideal way I would have built the first one had I not. Like the first Supra I had, I knew it was like a unicorn car. So I didn't want to ever do anything that wasn't reversible because I can acknowledge that everybody doesn't want something built the way I do. So anything that's mounted is an existing hole in the body or something like that. So there's nothing modified to the point where it's not reversible 100% if you wanted to go that avenue. On my other one, I bought a 95 twin turbo automatic. So we're chopping it up anyway. Yeah. So I could do anything I wanted. And that's when I did the Brembo big brake kit and the T56 and the Granis Racing rear end and and I did a twin kit instead of a single kit. So I've got twin 54 millimeter Garrett turbos on it. And that in my opinion is not the cheaper way to go, but it's a better way to go.
Yeah, it keeps it alive down low.
And it still makes over 1,000 horsepower.
And it's how Toyota kind of intended it. And I speak about the Supra first because I think about your early stuff with the Supra when it was still like, you know, oh man, like a Supra on the street with a big single turbo, like back, you know, I was looking at your channel like 16 years ago, you were making videos, and what cars did you have back then? So I never know how to do this thing where like I preface the person I'm talking to well enough.
Sure.
I more just get into talking about it. And some people don't really agree with that. They're like, you need to spend the first half an hour telling who they are, which I kind of don't do. But, you know, your early videos like 16 years ago in the streets of, you know,
New York
of North New York and that kind of stuff. Those are the cool, crazy, like nostalgic YouTube videos to me of car stuff.
Yeah, I mean, and then we even I predate YouTube. So like YouTube I used when it came on, you couldn't make money on YouTube. Now you can. And when you couldn't make money on YouTube, I'm like, why would if I'm selling DVDs, I would make DVDs to sell people. Why would I put the stuff up for free for everyone to watch it? Nobody's going to buy my DVDs. That was my income. So I used YouTube as a way to put like my first couple of uploads and everything were only the trailers to the videos, and then maybe the occasional like random snippet from the video, and then say if you like this, go buy a DVD and you can see more. That's
crazy that you saw it as a promotional tool like right away, and that probably took so many people so long to catch on to. I think of like Kyle Loftus as the same type of way, where he was selling DVDs and then he could put them on like forums, he could post about it, and that's like kind of the only, because you know, I wasn't around for the forum days as much. So that's like my only knowledge of it a little bit.
Well, I mean, it was a lot of word of mouth too. It was like, and I didn't even think, like, I never saw this as a career. And I go back, I just was a guy who wanted a car. So I got a car when I was young. And that was like the whole like beg, borrow, and steal, like lease the Corvette and then modify it, and then you have to buy it out, and then you finance the buyout, and like it probably took me 8 years to pay off my Corvette.
Was that the C5?
That's the C5,
the blue one that you still have. Yeah, the student driver.
As I said, you get buried in your mistakes, and and I've got now a car that's probably $250,000 deep.
Yep.
And if I put that $250,000 into something else, they would probably be worth the same money, if not more. Instead, I've got a $60,000 Corvette.
I said to somebody yesterday, I was talking about YouTube to him, and I was like, I think in a lot of YouTubers' minds, the best case scenario for one of their project cars is it burns down
and they get
on video, and they just like have this video of it just like gone and out of their lives, because if you don't touch it, then people are going to constantly ask about it.
Yep.
But you kind of have to do something with it. You almost need it to just disappear, get stolen, gone, like something like that.
I always get, we need more Corvette content, and I'll make Corvette content. Nobody watches it. And I'm like, so these diehard guys love to see it. And I'm like, why don't you just come over? I'll give you a ride in it, and we'll get that out of your system. Like it's so much easier to do that than like, what do you want me to see? I mean, my Corvette's great because it's a race car, and when it does race car things, it does very well. But then it'll also catch fire when it's doing those things. So it's a perfect car, but it's a perfect reason why you shouldn't really modify cars anymore. Because to modify cars now, you've got to go dangerous. Like you've got to go like 1,500, 2,000 horsepower to be talked about.
Yeah. Well, YouTube is so different now too. I mean, freaking anything you want to see is there.
Yeah.
It doesn't even make sense. Like early stuff was like, oh my gosh, he has a Lamborghini on YouTube, was crazy. Yeah. Now it's like,
guy with Pagani starts YouTube channel, and you're like, well, why would like guy with Pagani start a YouTube channel? But I get what you're saying. I don't know. It's YouTube is a very funny thing. It delivers anything and everything people want to see, and that's what makes it a great platform. And that's enabled a lot of us, both of us at the table here, and many other people in many different genres to make a lot of money doing it.
I mean, that's what got us to know each other was YouTube, and it was in such a different realm back then too. Even when we like did that first project car challenge, it was the first challenge was like the $500 car.
Yeah.
And that was that dude
in blue. Those are always fun though.
Yeah. Garrett and me and you had one as well. I think that was it. But that was a fun original challenge, and that kind of stuff did well. But I don't know if it would still even.
I mean, I just and this is what I love about how I've approached the internet is that I just want to go have fun, and I'll have fun. I'll videotape it. If I enjoy doing it, I'm going to do it and put it up. If it goes somewhere, it goes somewhere. If not, like I'm doing it for fun, which is why I didn't go all in on YouTube. I mean, I get every YouTuber goes through these like ebbs and flows of like, this is the greatest thing. I'm going to retire in like 3 weeks. It's like, oh my God, I'm going to be broke in 6 months. And like, it's this whole thing because you don't know, you're chasing a moving target. And you got into it because it was fun and you enjoyed it, and then it becomes work. And you could say that about virtually anything out there, is that once it becomes work, it takes a little bit of the flair out of it. Now you're not doing something you want to do. You're doing something that you think somebody wants to see you do.
And it's not a cheap avenue is automotive YouTube.
No.
There's a lot of cheaper things you could do on YouTube to make content.
Yeah, the crush guy. Didn't the guy with the hydraulic crush, he would just start squishing things.
Or people play video games.
Yeah.
I'm like, that's like free.
Yeah, or the guy who buys the first iPhone and drops it. I mean, like, it's the stupid stuff that seems to do well, but to me, that stuff's not fulfilling. And I found more enjoyment in going out and like just racing cars and having a good time. And when you do that, and you've been in the situation where I'm sure, where you've brought a car to a track, you traveled across the country, and the thing craps out on you right off the trailer or something like that. And you've wasted the entire trip. And that actually, the second Supra I built it for a TV show they were filming out in Vegas called Banging Gears. We dynoed it, we loaded it right on the trailer. I had 2 guys hot shot it right across the country. And the tuner was out there with me, and the engine locked up within like the first 5 minutes or whatever, in the first 20 miles. And it was a problem with the machine shop, so they warranted it. But like, I've got my car in Vegas now that I just built this 1,000 horsepower Supra to race on the show, and the thing craps out on me. And what do you do?
Fully across the country at that point. And then you can go the route of like, I'm going to fix it.
Yeah.
And then it's like, you have to basically just have a blank check. Because you're
well,
at the mercy of whoever.
there's no fixing it though. At that point in time, the only fix would be another motor, which we could have done a motor swap, but then we could have been something else could have broke.
Well, then you're at the mercy of like whoever has the parts.
Yeah,
I will pay you whatever it
and
needs.
hoping the motor is good.
Yep.
So
you kind of have to get into that level. But I do remember Banging Gears vaguely. I know like
earlier last year. Yep.
Yeah, I feel like and earlier than that too, wasn't there some other stuff that they did? I feel like car shows.
They didn't do anything. That
now.
was their first. That was their first stab, and it's still in post production. Okay. So they're gonna launch it somewhere.
Because Adam LZ had.
It was LZ Collette, and then JWW were the hosts.
Okay, I was thinking of one earlier than that. They were like Rob Dom, and like there was like a. That was your project? That was challenge?
I did the Project Car Challenge out in Vegas, and that turned into Sorted. Okay. And that was me, Matt Farah, Amelia, and Tanner. And we did one season of that, but it was expensive to produce.
Yep.
So, and I'm like, I just wish there were like ad sales guys that were doing stuff for me, but I don't like going out and selling a show because I've got other businesses that I'm involved in, so I don't have time to go do that. Like, lots of time invested for low return, but like that show, if I would do more seasons of it because it was awesome and it was a lot of fun to shoot. But it's just one of those things that proves my point that all cars tend to break when you modify them.
I remember the Calvo Viper on that pretty well because that's a pretty memorable car.
It's a sick car. That was probably the fastest car I've ever driven.
Yeah. I would probably assume that. The Calvo cars are pretty stout.
Yeah, but I mean, that car just, I forget where we were, a Beeline Highway or something like that. And we went like just like a hit or two. And that thing is like at 190, 200 miles an hour before you even blink an eye. And you're like, oh, holy crap. In where your body is expecting to be at about $140, you're doing 200. And you're like, I should probably slow down right now because I'm doing like 200 miles an hour.
You're like 3 gears in on the shifter and you're like, oh, wait, I'm not even.
And it's just so quick. Like the first one, you're just like holding on. Second one, you're holding on. And as soon as you shift into that third gear and you're like, all right, we're moving. You look down, we're like, we're moving too fast. Like time to slow down.
It was a similar discussion I was having with a buddy and he got a GT3 RS Porsche. And I was like, I'm kind of a hater on the GT3s. They're cool for the track, but if you're just going to street drive a car, I'm like Turbo S.
I mean, you could say that about every car.
I'm like Turbo S, though, if you're just going to, if you want a Porsche, and I was like, just get a Turbo S. They're more comfortable. They're faster.
I really enjoy the GT cars, though. They're just the sound. You can't change the sound. And it's just, they sound good. I think they look good. Because I think I've driven the turbos. I've driven the GT2s. They're fast. Like
There's so much car there for.
There's so much car, and they're just the noise. As I get older, I appreciate the 458s over. Like I just sold my F8 Spider, and I bought a 458 like a year and a half ago or 2 years ago, and I'm like, I'm going to keep this one because this one sounds good. It's fast enough. It's like it does everything really well. It looks good. It sounds good. at a certain point in time with that Calvo Viper, I mean, what are you going to do with 2,000 horsepower?
Yeah, you can really only use it in like a half mile.
Yeah, but and that's now it's much less versatile, and that's what happens when you modify these cars. That they're only good at one thing, and the only thing they all have in common is you can't just drive them to the track and drive them home. A GT3 or even a Porsche Turbo, like that's what makes those cars so popular, is you can do that. You could drive these things to the track, like know that you're going to be hot lapping the thing to just leave yourself enough tire to go home and then drive it home.
And they want you to do that.
Yeah.
Porsche is actually like pushing people. I think they're like one of the only companies that actually tells people to like actually go use their car. Ferrari's like, please don't.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think
please don't touch the track with it.
Most stock cars or most factory built cars are capable of that. Like I've had.
They should be.
They should be.
Ideally.
But and also, and this is the reason I say we sort of waste. I know at the time we didn't waste our money, but now modifying cars is a little bit more of a waste because you're making it less reliable. And the performance benchmark when I was younger was like down here. Now we're up here. Now, I mean, you could go buy a 765 LT McLaren, and I don't think there's a YouTuber out there that could build a car that can beat that in something that has to run more than 10 minutes.
In like a full gambit of like
and
couple different
exactly,
situations. You're not going to build a car that like does street driving and like a road course and this and like. You're not going to beat it in that aspect. Like, you
could beat it in a straight line or
sure.
a quarter mile. Exactly. Maybe you get a faster 0 to 60 time. It's like a Tesla, right? It can do one thing, but it's going to get smoked somewhere down the line.
I say the same thing. Like, I talk to people in like off-road, and I'm like, side-by-sides are so good. Why would you build a Jeep that has some like modified everything? Like, when you could just get a side-by-side, all the parts are available. It's the same concept on that. Like, you could just buy it. But for me, I don't care to go like rip on the street.
Yeah.
So I have a drag car because once you get your drag racing itch, I don't care to like floor it on the street. Like I'm just kind of like, okay.
I mean, I'm a situational guy. If there's a good spot to floor it, I'll floor it. Like whether it's the street or the track or driving through the Alps or going on the Autobahn. Like I do anything that's fun driving, and I try to, and especially when I'm in a car that's fun. Like I get zero enjoyment driving like a Ferrari through the streets in New York. Like I'm not there so I have a Ferrari. I'd rather go drive it in the mountains somewhere.
Maybe because Florida's so boring too.
Florida, yes, I agree. Florida is more of like a straight line. Like, is there somebody I could play around with next to me at the stoplight? If not, it's a pretty boring day to drive an exotic.
That's kind of the GT3 debate. I'm like, it's an on-ramp car. I get it.
Yeah.
But in Florida, most of the time, you're just kind of cruising.
Yeah, and there's cars all over, so it's not like you're doing much.
I don't need something that's rides stiff and has a cage.
I've never thought about the on-ramp car. It's funny.
It's just an on-ramp car. And then
So, I mean, this is one of the reasons that I started. When we sold our rental company in 2015, I'm like, all right, cool. I'm going to do like a retirement company now. Let's do something fun. And I started a company called Adventure Drives.
Yep.
And we do bucket list travel all over the world. So, like even this year, we're going to Monaco in the spring. We're doing Monaco, Saint-Tropez, the south of France. We're doing Route Napoleon, going through Italy and then coming back to Monaco. We're doing a Denver to Scottsdale. So that's going to be through Colorado, which is great driving. You've been there. You do a bunch of the mountain passes, Pikes Peak, go through Telluride.
And people can kind of bring their own car.
Correct. Or you can rent. Yeah.
But because, if you're going to Italy, you're not bringing your own car.
And that's the thing. It's usually an equation for most people. It's like, should I rent a car or should I ship my own? Most of our customers are from the U.S., so they'll ship their own in the U.S., but sometimes the rentals are just so cheap. When I was in California, we did a Napa to Vegas trip through Yosemite, and it was cheaper for me to rent a C8 and then drive it back to San Francisco afterwards than it would have been to ship my own car.
Yeah.
And I saved probably $2,000 driving somebody else's car and putting 1,800 miles on it.
I feel like you really live with a car too like that and know if you want one or not.
Yeah.
After 1,800 miles in a C8, you're like, eh.
And it's actually good because when I was in when we just did an Italy trip last year, and I rented an R8, like a 2023 R8 V10 Spider, and I like it. It's just not. I wouldn't buy one.
No.
So it's not fast enough. So it's
your Adventure Drives is on my bucket list to do with because my wife wants to go to Italy so badly, and I feel like that would be the perfect.
That's a quick one.
That's kind of like the perfect in between almost of like she gets
car
what she
trip,
wants, I get what I want. We get to do some cool stuff.
And you don't have to think about anything. That's what's good about the trips is they're all curated. So like you just have to sort of show up and everything else is sort of like, what are we doing next? Oh, that's so cool. Like in great restaurants, you don't have to go, all right, this one on Yelp says it's pretty good, and you go and it sucks because it's a tourist trap or something.
Yeah, like
so,
maybe.
Yeah, so we weed all that stuff out. But we're also doing another one in the end of, or in September. We're doing Oktoberfest, which is a great time in Munich. But we're doing Spa, Nurburgring, the Porsche factory, and Oktoberfest.
Oh, that's
so
cool.
like that's like a car guy thing,
Yeah.
and that's also you could rent good rental cars in Germany, like BMW M cars. You can rent AMGs, Porsches through like Sixt and Avis, and that's great because it's so cheap, and you can use those on the Autobahn to do your 180 miles an hour. And then at the tracks, they've got full-blown track cars. So at Spa and the Nurburgring, you've got however crazy you want a GT2 RS, you got it. Like
the Nurburgring seems like an interesting track to be like, I'm going to go try my hand at it because it takes so long to just do like a couple laps.
It's most people, if you've never been, even if you've got some like driving skill with an instructor, you'll probably be doing like a 9.5 minute lap.
Yeah, it's just so much time of like, I'm used to these tracks where you can memorize them in like, one lap because they're so short.
Which is funny. I wish the YouTubers would all ship our like project cars over there and we'll see what they could do, because like we go and like, oh yeah, we did like our project car challenges. Oh, he crapped out on lap 4. Car's been running for 7 minutes.
Yeah.
That car wouldn't have even made it a lap of the Nurburgring. Nope. So like you don't think about that, but cars are much more I don't want to say well built, but less insanely tuned over there, because they have to be more reliable. And when we're going around, 60-second tracks or whatever, if it lasts for 3 laps, everyone's like, that was awesome. Like Rob Dom's car is a perfect example. Like it sounds phenomenal. It goes super fast. But if you put it to the test, I mean, there's a lot more engineering that has to be involved for that thing to last and do significant competition.
Yeah, and his like 4-rotor is of course such a basket case because it's from the ground up. Not like basket case in a bad way. It's just crazy
it's exactly what the internet wants.
Yeah.
And it's just like some guy, it's the Homer Simpson mother-in-law mobile. It's like, haha, it's cool. Like it's got everything you think you need, but you're overthinking stuff, you're under engineering something else, and it just, to get that right takes years and years, and that makes it good for his channel because he's always working on this thing and people are always interested in the next thing. But you also have to celebrate the smallest milestones. It's like, I 2-stepped it in the parking lot and then it broke, but it was so cool watching that 2-step. So like we set the bar really low for ourselves so we get excited about anything.
Well, that's why drag racing's so good for YouTubers, is because it only has to last
a couple of seconds.
Maybe 9 seconds if you're one of the slower drag racers on YouTube, I would say. 9 seconds, burnout to finish line, you're good.
Yeah, and you could tow it. You don't even need coolant to that point in time.
No,
you literally just
blow up at the other end of the track, and that's like a success.
Yeah, but exactly. I did a 7.3, and then it doesn't matter. The engine, where's the engines? Over there in the pits. Like
that's great. People love that.
But that's great content, and it's expensive though, and that's one of those things that I was looking back after years, and I'm like, do I need more $250,000 Corvettes, or can I start filling a garage full of NSXs and Porsches and Ferraris and Lamborghinis? And that's worked out a lot better for me.
They are. You can definitely ride the market a lot better, and I kind of like. I've fixated a little bit more lately on like these cars that I don't care to own or anything, but the market of them, because it's interesting to see. Of course, COVID kind of
that's
threw the whole market all over the world, and. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, the NSX is obviously going to continue to go up in value.
I paid $35,000 for my NSX, but I bought it 9 or 10 years ago. Mm-hmm. And I remember people offering me like 70, 80 grand. I'm like, I would just keep it at that point in time, because it's like, it's a reliable car. And that's a great car to demonstrate. It looks cool. It's fun, but it's not fast.
Yep.
So, but I could easily get in that car. If you told me like we're driving to Anchorage tomorrow, I would take the keys to that. I would even probably take the keys to my 458.
Yep.
Like those cars are reliable cars.
Do you think when they come out with new ones like that, like the new Supra, the new NSX, it actually values the older ones higher because it brings it back into like people's...
It depends.
Kind of puts it back in front of people's face that like the old one was so good. And then the new one's kind of like a meh.
The only car that I think has done that would be like the Ford GT when they came out with the 05, 06.
Yeah.
Right? And then after they came out with the next one, the market got ridiculous on it, but that's a soft market. It's so weird. Like they couldn't sell the 05, 06 GT. Now people are paying 3x what they cost new because it was a great car. So I think as long as you make a great car, there's always going to renew interest in the old ones. But then you can make a car like the 5th gen Supra, and they're like, that's too much BMW. It's like this is not that. Yeah. And they were so close with the FT1 concept that it looked, oh, this is really cool. If you make this, you put the wing on it, you make it like a homage to the old Supra, and that could have been a turbo car or whatever, it would have been a great play. But they ended up making it a Chime's BMW.
I was going to say the Chime, the second I opened the door and I heard that BMW
yeah,
Chime,
and it's the same BMW gearbox. So it's the same as, what is it, the Z4?
Z4, yeah.
And it's just like, it takes something away. The Supra was iconic. And now the thing is, the new Supra is a good car. And I think they would have been better served just not calling it a Supra.
If it came out as anything else, I mean, the same with like the NSX. If it came out as anything else, the Ford GT, obviously the newest Ford GT is just like nothing to anyone because like nobody sees them. They're not.
Hey, nobody drives them. They're all, that was sold as effectively a collectible.
Ford wants you to forget about them. I think they're like, no, we don't service them. Don't talk to us about it.
It's real tough. I don't know. My friend has one. We had it at the track. It was quick, but not. He's got a lot of cars, but he was like unimpressed by it.
Yeah.
And to have a car like that and be unimpressed by it when you drive the 05, 06 and all you could do is giggle the whole day. And the Ford would sell a racing exhaust that made that thing scream. Like that, the moment at 2 minutes and 4 seconds or whatever it is in my Ford GT Runs from the Police video where you downshift and it just barks and everyone's like, that's cool. Like most replayed moment in like auto internet history is that like downshift. And it just, that is an emotion and you don't get that. Even though this car is going to be quicker, you're not going to get the emotion that you get out of the last one.
There's not much that has a curb appeal of a Ford GT like that.
Yeah, which the new one or the
one that you have, the older one.
Yeah,
the one
that, look, I think the new one looks phenomenal.
They're good looking cars.
I just it's like a prowler to me.
But this like giant low,
yep,
like looks like it could go 300 miles an hour because it's pretty much the car that does.
Yeah,
like it has. The
Saleen S7 was like that too. Yeah. Just like thing looks like a spaceship. Also a terrible car. Like I had one. Somebody just messaged me because they keep tabs on where these things are. My old Saleen S7, I think, is in Morocco or it's some like foreign country now.
Gone. Yeah,
it's gone. But it was just like it was not a great car. I had it on the track too, and I thought it would be great on the track. It would crap out on the street. That thing has overheated on me in South Beach on Ocean Boulevard when we were filming for. Whatever, Travel Channel or something like that. It's left me stranded in the gas station when for some reason it just didn't want to ever start ever again. And we had to get mechanics in there and everything. We were there for hours.
Was it a turbo one?
No, it was a non-turbo.
Okay.
It was a NA and it had the track package on it.
Because I rode in one at Hefner that was twin turbo. And he was like, I had to change everything on this car to make it good.
Well, that's the whole point.
It was like ECU, engine, all the turbo.
So now,
kit,
now it's a different kit car because it's not even there. You're not going to get one that's actually authentic.
And then the interior leaves a lot to be
desired. The interior is a little rough. You couldn't really see the odometer in there because it was like everything was sort of like squished in.
Yeah, there wasn't actually room for feet in the passenger side.
And even the
hump.
driver's side too.
Really?
So driver's side, like you needed race shoes, and like I've got size 10 feet. I still needed race shoes to not catch both pedals. And to think about that extra little lip on the side of your shoe that makes the car undrivable.
Yeah, and they didn't want to work on them. Saleen kind of didn't want to like.
Yeah, I mean, and I met Steve a couple of times, and I think he told me they made like 55 of them, and they had another like 10 or 20 chassis between racing and then like just sitting around doing nothing.
Yeah.
Given modern day performance standards now, I would love for them to use that same chassis because it's a carbon chassis and make a modern Saleen. I think Saleen's trying to do that S1 car and they just crowdfunded something. I was warning people to stay away from that because that's probably never see your dollar again. But if somebody wanted to like make Gen 2 Saleen, I still think that car looks great. And that's one of those things I wish, and I hope it's in the future for us, is that these McLaren F1s and these 250 GTOs and these 959, these untouchable cars can be modernized and resold. And it's never going to be authentic, right? It's going to be a 2027, not Porsche 959, but it's going to be a little bit better. It's going to look like a 959, but it's going to be a more modern version, sort of what every manufacturer does to their Camaros and their Challengers and Chargers. I think to sell small batches of that, I'm never going to be able to afford a $20 million McLaren F1 or 30, 40, $50 million, but then it's not going to be driven. But if they sold me one for $1.2 million that's made in 2030 and I can drive it and it's a naturally aspirated, like a Gordon Murray car, naturally aspirated McLaren F1 center seat, paying essentially, trying to get as close to the original spec as possible, but modernized. So it's the safety standards are up, the suspension's a little tighter. I think that would be a home run. It's never going to be a $20 million car, but I can go drive it.
Yeah, you're not Jay Leno working on your McLaren F1.
Yeah, I mean,
trying to wrench on that thing.
But I mean,
very few people that even have one even want to touch it.
Yeah, but I don't even think it's that fun. Like, I don't want to play mechanic on my $20 million car, because what happens if I break something? I'm going to strip something and need to go. That's the problem with the exotics, is if you screw something up, it's like, oh, well, that's a $35,000 transmission. You got to buy a new one because you cracked the case, and nobody rebuilds them and nobody does this. So you're out so much money. That is McLaren's downfall right now. That is why McLarens are phenomenal cars, but they suck in resale, because when they break, they're super expensive to fix.
Yeah, and there's not many small shops that dig into
that
McLarens.
You want to touch it. Yeah,
there's very few. I mean, one of them is Arnie, of course.
Yep.
He's like one of the few shops that I really know of that will
we'll touch it.
Fully work on your McLaren as needed. Cannonball Garage.
Yep.
And yeah, he's probably one of the only ones, or maybe if you could get Tavares to help you.
Yeah, but it's still expensive though. That's the whole point. Even Tavares with the P1, I think he's not putting it back to P1 spec because it's too expensive.
And it's not as good.
Well, no. If you put it back to a P1 spec, it'll be the same.
Yeah, but it's not as good as like ditching the battery, from what I understand.
Yeah, well,
Like
you think ditching the battery is better?
I think their hybrid system is just so outdated.
Interesting. I mean, I could see updating it, and I think he's probably ditching it because it's probably $350,000 or $400,000 to fix it.
Yeah.
For just the hybrid system, and you can only get it through McLaren, and they may not even sell it to him because the car has been deemed. What is it called when they? It's a certificate of destruction, so they don't even want it rebuilt.
Yeah.
And they issue a certificate of destruction, so you can't rebuild it. It's not going to stop somebody, but it won't get a clean title ever. There's a whole process to try to get that. But the McLaren doesn't want that car out there.
But the hybrid cars, like there was like 3 big hybrid supercars, and I feel like all 3 of them have kind of faded into oblivion. The LaFerrari, the 918 is obviously probably still the peak one, but then the P1s, you have McLaren reliability on a P1.
Yeah, it's just super. And
it just disappears.
But that's why it disappears, and that they don't get driven.
Yeah.
But they just get parked. And the fact that you may, if you don't drive it very much, you may end up being the guy holding the hot potato when something breaks, and you're going to have to write that $300,000 check. But the car is going from 1.5 to 2.5 to 4.5, so it's worth millions of dollars. That same guy with the Ford GT also has a LaFerrari Aperta. Yeah. And it was his birthday, and we were out in Vegas, and we were going to drive it like 1,000 miles in the week. And he bought one with like 300 miles on it. We were ripping it up the highway, doing 200 miles an hour from a go-karting place. Came back from Las Vegas Motor Speedway, parked it right in the valet of the Caesars, and the thing crapped out. The hybrid system busted, and he had to drive something else for the rest of the week. And I mean, that sucks. And that, luckily they warrantied it because there was like a recall on it. But that it's fast as hell, but it sucks that those systems were so early on. And when it does work, the performance is killer. Yeah. Because he had that the same day we were doing the Ford GT, he had that car at Road America too. And it shows you the downside to these hypercars. He was driving it, hot lapping it all day long, and he had to change the brakes afterwards. And when he changed the brakes, they also made him change the wheels and do the the FXXK wheels or something, because the brakes and wheels got so hot from tracking it that they had to replace it. And they said, well, we don't really design it to drive like that.
The wheels get overheated.
So yeah, they had cracks in the wheels, but it was $250,000. So the guy went to one track day in his car, which theoretically is like a track car, and he races, so he knows how to drive. But so he's pushing the car.
You should be able to.
But the car should be designed for that. You shouldn't be taking your car out. Next thing you know, it's $250,000 to go to the track for the day.
Well, even like a bunch of Sennas have already been taken off the road just by totaled or by fire.
It's a lot of car to drive, though.
Yeah, but fires happen on them, it seems like. I've seen a couple.
I mean, you're going to see Ferrari, Lamborghini, McLaren. For some reason, I guess it's the materials that they use. They generally seem to catch fire more often than not. But then you also have like Lambos all the time. These idiots just popping flames out of the back. And you hold a lighter to your bumper long enough, something's going to catch fire.
You melt the bumper and then you burn the
Well,
whole
it's
thing.
not even melt. Like you're talking like a flammable material that the bumper's made out of. And like if you apply an open flame to it long enough and the engine bay is already, the engine bay is already 600 degrees.
Funny enough, like if you're talking about cars that expensive, Bugattis seem insanely reliable. I feel like
You don't see a lot of people driving Bugattis, though.
I just feel like every time I've seen somebody that actually drives them, they seem to last a while, which is mostly Stradman and like, I know Houston just redid his whole Bugatti that went into the water, but like they seem to be pretty tough cars.
I have not seen. I mean, first, none of those are hybrids. The Bugatti is just a turbo and an engine.
But even like a ton of the non-hybrid Ferraris and McLarens all kind of fail.
Which ones?
Pretty much every McLaren.
The older ones.
MP4
But the MP4 was a turbo. Yeah, but
those things all kind of
failed
and
at some point. That's the problem. They're expensive to fix, and it was mostly electric issues. Yeah. So like all the electronics failing, I had a 12C where the steering rack went, right? And like steering rack, no big deal. Bring it to the dealer. Oh, sorry, warranty was up a month ago. Too bad. All right, how much is the steering rack? Well, it shares a shares a fluid reservoir with the brake system, so we got to replace that. So it's $35,000. And I'm like, what? Like, so I had to replace the steering rack in a McLaren, and the cheapest route to do it, because you couldn't get like, let me just go look up the the GE part number and get it out of a different car and put it on there, and it couldn't be rebuilt. So I had to buy a crashed McLaren out of Canada. I bought the carcass. I took out the steering rack and then sold the carcass when I was done with it. But it took me like 6 months to do that.
Yeah, I was going to say that's crazy that the manufacturer basically forces a customer into the position where it's easier for him to buy a wrecked car and cheaper.
Most people would just go, but like at the time, that car was probably $160,000. So like if you have $160,000 that the dollar car that the steering rack goes on, you got to spend $35,000 to repair something that you didn't even do wrong, and it's out of warranty. And like Ferrari and Lamborghini have been spectacular about like, oh yeah, it's out of warranty, but it's only like a month, so we'll goodwill that. So we'll cover that for the relationship. McLaren was like, nope, like 1 day out of warranty, we're not covering it.
Well, like once Lamborghini took over the R8 and
Audi,
the Audi took over, the R8 and the Lamborghini platform, they became so good that it's almost like laughable when you look at like the Gallardos and stuff like that, Gallardos.
Yep.
Like I had Jason Hefner on here, and nobody modifies the older Lamborghinis.
Yeah, nobody wants to touch them. But
no one wants to touch any of those. And then the new platform is just so much better. It's like, for a supercar, it seems like the real simple go-to for anybody that I know. $250,000 and you have a twin turbo car.
That's a lot of car, but there was a lot of innovation and a lot of technology, advancements in technology after like 2003. Like that 10 years between 2000 and 2010, cars became very reliable. And other than McLaren, which just started making the MP4s after 2010, Ferrari and Lamborghini, I pretty much would stand behind any Ferrari or Lamborghini made after 2010 as a reliable car.
I mean, that's from what I've seen. I've seen some go pretty freaking fast, and those twin turbo kits, they make like, I think I've seen like 2,000 horsepower stock unopened motors. Yeah. And it's just like insane. It doesn't even make sense.
Yeah, but I mean, it's also that's something that's not necessary. Like, and you've seen a 2,000 horsepower Lambo or something like that, but that guy is putting 400 miles a year on it. So
some of them you'd be pretty surprised now, though. They've become pretty refined with the Motex and stuff and the traction controls, and like you can drive it pretty
but you're getting one that's 800 horsepower. The 2,000 horsepower cars don't see miles. But if you're doing something that's like considering lightly modifying something, because if you're taking something that's 650 and putting it up to 850, it's a 20% boost. When you're doubling or tripling the power is when you start to and start going with the sequential shifters, and then it's a completely different animal.
It's funny for the R8s and the Huracans. There's really no like entry level mods. Like, yeah, you can do an exhaust and like a tune, but like everybody kind of just like does the one big step almost.
Yeah.
It's like,
well, I mean, and it's also very expensive. You're doing $40,000-$50,000 for a turbo kit or a supercharger. So it's, and that's because you're not changing one thing. They're changing a lot of things. All the fuel pump, the fuel system's getting changed, computer, the ECU. So you're keeping the foundation of the car, but you're significantly changing everything that needs to be upgraded to make that possible.
So did you see everybody keeps posting about this Hertz selling all their Teslas?
Yep.
What's your take on that one?
I mean,
as a rental car guy.
Logistically, it makes sense because you can't, I don't care who you are, you can't charge these cars efficiently and fast
So
enough.
Hertz is selling, what, 20,000 Teslas or 40,000 Teslas, something like that?
20,000.
20,000 Teslas out of their fleet.
For nothing, yeah.
Yeah. And everybody's like, see, nobody wants electric cars. And I was kind of thinking, I was like, it just seems like when somebody gets in a Tesla that's never been in one, you kind of have to explain to them a few things. I feel like they just don't want to deal with that.
But yes
like,
and
oh,
no.
you need to use this card and click this button and charge it like this. And a lot of these people are probably just like, you either can't
or
get
they
people
break
to,
the charging port off or something stupid because they don't know what they're doing.
You either don't have employees to convince like how to do it, like that can teach how to do it, or you just don't want to deal with your customers.
It's not part of the rental process. And what are they gaining by putting all these electric cars in there, other than the fact that they can tell people they have an electric fleet or a partially electric fleet? Yeah. But when you charge, I mean, it's not easy to keep these things charged. And a lot of people will come back, or they'll run out of battery, or the car will say it's got 230 miles of range, but in real life driving, it's 170 miles, and now it's looking for a supercharger. Like, you have to be about that life. I think I drive a Tesla every day now. My wife does too. And it's completely changed the way I enjoy life with my daily drivers. I was a big proponent of that like $1,000 crap Mercedes life or Audi life, and I did that for a while. But because then you bang it up. But a Tesla is a perfect, like, comfortable car that you could bang up. It just blends in with everything. Nobody notices you. And if you charge it at your house every day, I leave with a full tank. I haven't had to go get gas in, I don't know, over a year. So, and then I get this BMW Mini Cooper that I got today from Enterprise, and you realize why the Teslas don't really work, because I got this car and the brakes were still squeaking from just hosing it down to go from one customer to me. And there's a whole line of dripping wet cars, and they're like, which one do you want? And you can't do that with a Tesla because it's got to be on a charger for, like a proper charger for at least 3 or 4 hours, unless they have this supercharging network, which they don't have. They'd have to go to Tesla superchargers to do that, and that doesn't work.
Yeah, there's not like a downtime. They're just trying to hand it off to the next customer. I get it for the daily driver. People always hate on the electric cars if you own a gas car.
Yeah.
But I get it for the daily driver.
Well, that's the thing. I've got both, and I could be objective about it. And like, will I have fun in the fastest Tesla ever made? No. Like, I need noise, I need engagement, and you don't get that. Is it fast? Sure. So is a linear induction roller coaster. But like, that's all. Like, it gets old as soon as you do that. If you use it for getting around and not having to gas up, and like, I'm sure there's been a point in time where you looked at the pump and you're like, oh, Jesus Christ, and $120 to fill up at some point for something, and it just annoys you. It's like, like what did I even do? I filled it up like 6 hours ago.
And once you have like a Plaid and you launch it like 8 times, you show all your friends, you're like, all right.
Yeah, and then it's over. Then it's just
that's it.
Yeah, that's the only trick I've got.
Yeah, that's all it is.
But for driving around, all of my Teslas I ever buy for myself are like, I call them peasant spec. It's no options. I get the white one, the black interior with no options. And it works.
Well, you can't tell the difference.
But they all look the same, exactly.
The most expensive $200,000 Tesla
is the same thing with a P90 badge on the back or something.
And the cheapest one, they almost look the same.
Yeah,
maybe you don't have gold wing doors
but which is what I like about them, is that they just blend in. It's not like a flex to show up in like in a new G-Wagon or something like that. Here's just a Tesla. Nobody's asking. If you show up like to a restaurant in a Ferrari, everyone's like, "Oh, sir, we'd park this right out front. It's only $50." I'm like, I don't need you to park it out front. Like, and it's like, you don't have to go through that sort of thing. But I understand that there's a giant subculture of owners that they live for that. They're never going to drive the cars like we do. They just want that recognition that they have a Ferrari and this is what it's capable of. Look at this dude's video. Watch what he did with my car. And that's how they get their rocks off, is that everybody knows that that guy has a car that's capable of this. But that's also the guy who's going to crash leaving Cars and Coffee because he's going to step on the gas thinking he's going to do the thing that the guy on the internet did. And it required a little bit more skill than just like, all right, if I do this and that, what's going to happen?
Do you think Hertz like scored a nice tax break when they got him and kept that? Like, you know, because you get like whatever $7,000 tax credit on the electric cars. Do you think they worked some sort of deal where it ended up looking pretty good for them to get rid of it?
So I'm sure when you buy 10 cars, you probably have some bargaining power. When you buy 20,000 cars, you're not going to Tesla dealer. You're speaking directly to like Tesla corporate,
Like that's
and saying,
like a year of their factory.
yeah, and whatever factories, even if it's 2 months worth of production, like that price, they didn't pay anything near what the rest of us would have ended up paying. And
so they're probably not losing their ass there too much on selling them. And then also you get that EV tax credit stuff that people talk about.
And that's quite, I mean, as far as I know, Tesla doesn't pay much in taxes at all anyway. So like whatever the accountants are doing. But I think that in that realm, I don't think Hertz was hurt by the purchase and the sale of these. Mm-hmm. But also I think they said the driving factor was the cost to repair them was higher than the other cars. So if now you've got the cost to repair being higher, that especially if they're selling insurance to somebody and you bang up their Toyota Camry, it costs them $8,000 to fix. You bang up their Tesla, it costs them $30,000 to fix. They're writing that check. They have underwritten by selling that guy that $30 a day policy. Their cost of repairing their fleet is going up because it's more expensive you can't go get a used Camry fender and put it on a Tesla. You have to buy the parts from Tesla.
And every body shop I've ever talked to hates Teslas.
Yeah,
they end up sitting there for so long because they can't get the parts.
Yeah,
because like a bumper, they're giving them to new cars. They don't care about the car that really just got banged up.
Sure,
they're really concerned about the new stuff. Yeah, so I could see how that would probably not.
Yeah, I mean, it's a really interesting. It's more than just what hits the articles as far as the decision to just offload all of them. But I think it was probably a logistical issue that they couldn't keep the utilization as high on the Teslas as they could on a regular car, that like it's topped off by the customer when they come in. You can't ask your customer to top off your Tesla on the way in.
Do you have any other faith in any of these other electric car companies?
I don't follow any of them.
Because I know a lot of them pop up all the time because they're like, well, Tesla did it. We can look at this.
Rivian.
Venture capital.
Yeah, well, exactly.
Please.
There's one in China, Neo or something like that, which is a hot topic right now.
Lucid is pretty big.
Yeah, but I mean, I'm not familiar with any of them. I don't care. They all drive the same. They're all the same thing. To me, I'm not excited by any of them, so I don't pay attention. Like I'll know more about Gordon Murray's T50 than I will about any other car, any electric car out there.
People probably just love to talk about them because they're trying to get in on the bottom, imagining they're getting in like Tesla stock on
theoretically,
the bottom.
But also, I mean, look, I think that if I were to look at the future, and I was very anti-electric car when they came out because I didn't think they'd have range. There may come a time where we can have a swappable battery the size of this basket that'll charge your car for 300 miles. And you can have 3 of them sitting in your trunk and you just pop one out, pop one in, and you're right back to the road. You put them in your charger at home, like your typical drill or something, or your Ryobi drill where you can swap batteries. That could be the case. The gas stations could have a wall full of batteries and they just pull in, pull out, almost like a quick change at a pit stop. So if we get to that point, people will have a hard time arguing their functionality. I mean, they drive fine. They're quiet. They do exactly what you need them to do. The technology inside the car is great. Heated seats. The thing's always warmed up. You never have to jump start it. Like, I mean, all of these positives. And then the cost of maintenance is significantly lower because you have no oil changes. You have no fluid changes. It's like maintaining a golf cart.
And there's a big bandwagon push, of course, too, because like, you know, Ford is like, we need ours. And then Porsche has their Taycan. And everybody's kind of trying to get on that same bandwagon, which I don't really agree with. I think a lot of those companies should stick with what they're good at. I don't think Ford has any business making an electric F-150 because they can.
I mean, look, at the end of the day, they saw everyone pushing big electric, and I think the government was incentivizing big electric for everybody to transition over.
Yeah.
I think the government has since hit the brakes on that. I think there is a place in the world, and I think that a majority of the commuter cars should be electric, but fun cars should be entitled to be fun, like natural, like not necessarily unrestricted, but there should be a lot less restriction on recreational cars than there are the majority of the stamping out the Kia Rios and everything that people are using to get to and from work.
Yeah, because I mean those are pretty user friendly, basic as can be. Like my mother-in-law's car has like nothing inside of it, like no. But like every button's like black button, you know. They're like you can't actually touch them. I'm like, there's nothing in here. This is crazy.
I'm curious where. I mean, who knows where it's going to go? But I think that we're going to see a lot more electrification. And theoretically, I think there's a road that just opened up in Sweden or something where the road is electrified, so the cars are in a perpetual state of charging while driving on them.
I'm sure some cities too will be pretty nice if, like, you know, I don't love it, but like, you know, what is it, London? Like, there's like a tax for coming in with like a gas-powered vehicle, I guess. So, you know, if you have like a tight city and it's all electric, it's going to be nicer to walk around in. It's just inevitable.
Well, they're doing that in New York too. They're doing a toll for a certain sector of the city. If you go in it during daytime hours, they charge you another $15.
See, it's fine with me because I don't want to go to New York City anyways. And I can understand, like, you walk around New York City and you're like, because of all the
garbage. Oh no, it's not. You're not getting that. It's like
just being in a city.
Being in a city, it's like being in Miami. You're not smelling the emissions and everything like that, and like the cruise ships, like giving all. So it's not quite that bad, but I do see a big shift. If you've gone to cities like Copenhagen, in Denmark, cars are almost like there's more bicycles than there are cars. Mm-hmm. And it's weird, like the people in business suits with their briefcase, like riding a bicycle. But that's just the way the culture is over there.
That I would be big on is electric bicycles and scooters and
stuff. That's what I was about to get into. You're seeing a lot more of that.
Because it makes sense.
Yeah.
A 5,000-pound vehicle will never be environmentally friendly.
And it's going to cause more traffic. It's harder to maneuver. Yeah. But if we're starting to switch over to these scooters and like micro-mobility, that seems to be the going trend, that you could fit more people in less space. You don't need one guy in a 7-passenger Escalade ESV that takes up a lot of space. No, and that's right now, that's what we have is a bunch of people one at a time in an SUV. If you could take that same spot and put 30 people in it that are all moving at the same pace, you've now relinquished a lot of your headaches with traffic.
Like when you look at places like Thailand, like where there's like 5,000 scooters that all cross each other. I'm like, man, if those were zero emissions, that would be, because those things are all burning oil and stuff.
I mean,
too.
And that's the old argument too, because to do the electric vehicles and everything is like I want to save the planet. Yes, we all have to save the planet collectively. Like we can't save the planet as California and New Jersey and New York, but India's cranking and China's cranking out any emissions that they want unregulated. So, and they've got 5 times the population we do. So what are we doing? Like, why are you telling me I can't do this with my Corvette and it's going to be pushing out too much emissions, but your private jet that you're flying puts out more emissions starting up than my car does in its entire life? So like, you don't think about that. You see the cruise ship putting out like whatever, enough carbon emissions to offset everything I could possibly do in my lifetime with 50 sports cars. And that thing's just idling at the dock. So there's a big argument to be like, what's actually controlling? Like, is the start-stop on our cars really doing anything, or is it just annoying the piss out of us?
Oh, that's the worst. I mean, my wife's car, I'm like, the starter's just going to fail.
Eventually, but the starters are amazing now.
Yeah.
Like I've never had a starter failure.
Fail. I know they kind of use compression to start back up sometimes, like in fuel, like they kind of spark themselves back up. But still, I mean, something's going to fail doing that. And even during COVID, they were flying planes that were empty just because they had to like keep things moving. They were just flying empty planes around, and I'm like, man, that can't be good.
Also, a lot of people don't realize that even passenger planes, they move a lot of cargo. Yeah. So like the passenger plane is going from point A to point B, and there could be caskets on it. There could be mail on it. There could be packages. There's a whole bunch of stuff that goes under the belly of the plane, and 5 people. And even when you have your full flight going from here to London, you could have a bunch of commerce on it too. And I buy stuff from, there's a guy, Emmis from Max. He's an artist out of Miami, and he ships that stuff like on planes. So he boards it up and packages it up, and I pick it up at the airport. So it's like air freight. And so there's a lot of stuff that moves on planes that people don't think about. And it makes sense, because why would a airplane not leave completely full? Why would they be like, all right, we've got half the cargo hold empty. They can make money doing that. That plane's flying no matter what.
That's why those things get around so quickly.
Yeah.
Do you miss the rental car business at all?
I'm still in it.
I know. You said you sold the one business in
We sold the
2015.
one, yeah, and then like the problem with the car businesses, and you hear it all the time, a lot of scumbags. And the company we sold it to ended up defaulting on us, and they screwed us out of 7 figures. We had to go into arbitration. We obviously won the arbitration, then they disappeared, and they started new companies and chase me if you want, but they owe us significantly more than $1 million, and we had to deal with that. And then I was like, you know what? Let me just start another company, and I got to do the fulfillment for my own website again, because I can't keep sending these guys business. They've now defaulted. And
was it like cars that they scam you out of, or just
no? They were
like they were
so
supposed to
the
give
way
you more money.
they were supposed to give us money.
it,
Yeah.
like,
The way we structured the deal is we had an earnout where they were going to give us a fixed amount up front. They were going to buy the assets, the furniture, the lights, take over the leases of the warehouse, and our leases in California and everything like that. And then they were going to pay us 20% of what we generated for 5 years. And then at the end of the 5 years, then we would give them the remainder of the business, which is the website, phone numbers, stuff like that, for $10.
Okay.
And then after the first like $7 million in business, they've given us 0. And I'm like, guys, you guys start showing us the money. Like, the gift certificates, we had $400,000 in unused gift certificates. We think they all came in. I'm like, some of those things are 12 years old. They're not coming in. Nobody's like, you can't tell me I've been sitting like. There's maybe $70,000 in current gift certificates from the last 2 or 3 years, and then $330,000, which is on the books, but it's old. It's like just unused, and if somebody comes and uses it, they get to use it. But we're looking at these things, and like, there's no way $400,000 came in. But then they all started trying creative accounting and everything like that. They hired me to work for the company, and then they fell behind paying me. They owed me like $80,000 or $90,000 at one point in time, and they stiffed me out of 60 of it. But like, just scumbags. So we ended up going into arbitration because that's what was contracted.
And what cities were you in at the time?
When we sold to them, we were in Las Vegas, LA, Miami, and New York.
Okay, so it was pretty across the nation. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it was the hot spots.
Yeah.
And and that's why I started another one. But I'm like, I don't need such a big company anymore. I don't enjoy it. My brother works in the company, so like I like giving him something to do. He sort of runs that. I've got adventure drives now. I've got the YouTube stuff, and then I have I'm starting a luggage company now. So that's
I saw your suitcase you were posting about.
Yeah, so that's my next like this like it interested
route.
me. It's not even really an out. Like I just
Your next route, I mean.
yeah, my next route. Yeah, no,
nice.
I just look to like do things that interest me. Like I've got like I think most of us probably have like significant ADD where. Like next shiny thing that moves, we want to be all about it, and we go head in on it for like 90% of the way, and then we're like, all right, it's pretty much done, and move on to the next one.
Yep. I feel like the rental car business, like supercar rentals, looks so cool and glamorous from the outside, but it just seems like something that would be more than like anybody probably sees you and like, oh man, I can make a like. I'm sure a lot of your clients, because they're probably pretty wealthy, a lot of them are like, oh, I could do this, make a killing.
Yeah, but I mean, everybody that gets into it,
type of thing.
Yeah, I mean, everybody that gets into it thinks it's so easy, and I'm like, look, I'm being honest with you, like it's not, and the margins suck, and it's and like I've been doing this for 20 years, but you're gonna probably have issues here, and here, and they're like, oh, whatever, and they try to cut corners, and they try to like not register the cars as rental cars, and they try to put it under personal insurance. If something goes wrong, they're committing insurance fraud and trying to be like, oh yeah, sorry, my car got stolen, when it wasn't really stolen. You put it on the rental contract and it just never came back. So, and then they find out like a lot of people that did this, and they did that stupid TikTok hack. Like anything that you hear on TikTok as like a life hack is probably going to land you in jail. It's probably a felony. But like one of the guys that was working with me, it's like he found out this TikTok guy's like, look, when you go to a car dealership, you can go into a car dealership and you get a pre-approval, right? But like say you go to Chevy, get a pre-approval for $50,000, but you don't know if you want that Chevy, but they still want to pre-qualify you. You go to Dodge, same thing. When they go to another bank, they give you a pre-approval, and then you don't know if you want a Dodge. You go to Honda, they give you a pre-approval. So you go to all these different dealerships, and then you go back at the end of the day and you buy all the cars because you've already been approved through all these different banks.
Yeah.
So where you have credit worthiness of $50,000, you've just racked up $400,000 worth of cars that you can then put on Turo and start renting out. And I'm like, you're committing fraud. Like, this is not a hack. This is fraud.
Yeah.
You have credit worthiness of $50,000 and you're borrowing $800,000 because they would do this like twice before the credit companies figured out what was going on. And every single time, like, it was such a terrible idea. You were right. Like, I was trying to sell off the cars and one's crashed and the guy said it was going to get fixed, but it's not getting fixed. So it's just sitting over there. So he's paying the monthly on it. And it just turns into such a nightmare. But like, there's no like easy hack, right? There's like, there's a reason you can't walk into a bank and get an $800,000 loan. Like, so why you think if you can trick somebody into giving you $800,000 that you are now all of a sudden like capable of handling that?
Those people that thought that Turo was like a great move like that, it just
now it's a race to the bottom. Too.
No shot. And even like Airbnb, Uber, anytime I say this, anytime somebody says they're going to redefine something like tech. It's probably not going to redefine.
Uber did, Airbnb did, but it's good for Uber and Airbnb because they're in control, right? Like at first, Uber needed you. At first, Airbnb needed you. Now, Airbnb can be like, all right, now you're getting 30%, I'm getting 70%. What are you going to do? You're going to go start renting it on your own? Like, and that's the thing. And everyone's like, I can't wait to get off of Turo. But where are you going to go?
But they're all still a race to the bottom, Airbnb.
And that's the problem because they get so many people that everyone, and then they have now more people and more hosts than you do demand. And then that makes everyone drop the prices. And now it's to the point where it's like, well, I'm concerned about is not having this overhead. Yeah. So I don't care if my Corvette goes out for $50 a day. It'll cover, if it goes out for 30 days, it'll cover my payment so I don't have to come out of pocket for my Corvette.
At least the people on Airbnb bought houses.
Correct. Which is not a depreciating asset.
Not as
generally.
bad as like the guy that went out and bought a new Dodge Ram.
Yeah. but also like they may be, a house could be expensive too. And a house has a lot of transactional costs. So if you buy the house for $500 and then you want to sell it for $500 when you're done, you may have to pay $60,000 in real estate commissions and like, oh, this has to be repaired. Oh, it needs there's an oil tank in the yard you didn't know about. And now it's like, well, I can't afford to give up that $60,000 and now you're buried in it. And this is what happens to a lot of people.
Because I've seen the same hack where it's like, I bought 10 Airbnbs.
Yeah, arbitrage.
Like, oh, wow. Well, you want to be a hotel owner? Like, because that seems horrible.
Yep.
Like, and personally, me, when I travel, I prefer a hotel
100%
every single time.
Yep.
I don't have to deal with some person. I don't want to go to somebody's house. I just want to go into a hotel.
I was just out for CES. Some scooter company brought me out called Flash Motors, and they make like an 80-mile-an-hour scooter, which is nuts. Like mind-boggling to me.
Motorcycle.
But they booked me in an Airbnb, and I was like, hey, can you just like, I'll book my own hotel. I understand the hotels are expensive right now, but like I don't really like travel with laundry detergent and stuff or like whatever it is. Like in my head, you
don't want to strip the beds?
Yeah, but like I'm like, I want my bed to be made up when I come back to the room. I want fresh towels. Like there's a reason if you're paying to be somewhere, there's a certain level of like satisfaction and service. Yeah, so that was one of those things. So I was like, if you don't mind, like, but they were buried in it. So I just bought my own hotel anyway. Yeah. But like I'm definitely a hotel guy.
And that was out in Vegas, you said?
That was in Vegas. Yeah, CES is a big, it's consumer electronics show, but it gives you a glimpse into the future, and which is cool because like imagine you're here, and I remember I was there just before COVID got big, and like your alarm in your house when you leave, you have to like set the alarm. But the future is you're not going to have to set the alarm. The alarm is going to know who you are. It's going to know who your guests are. It's going to know who your dog is, who your kids are. And the alarm will be on even when you're home. It'll just know that somebody else is not there and doesn't belong. So you'll eternally be armed and monitored. And now some people like, look, tinfoil hat community is never going to want that because they're like government spying on me. But like for other people, that's very convenient. Like to never have to forget to set the alarm, or the alarm doesn't go off when it's not supposed to go off, but it's always on. Because like you could be in your kitchen and somebody could be about to break in your back door and you have no idea, but the alarm's already 5 steps ahead of you.
Well, even like the monitor that I have for my child, like the strap goes around his waist and it watches him breathing.
Oh, so that,
and it'll alert
that's
you on the phone. So when he's sleeping, it'll alert you on the phone if like the breathing has an issue. Like it has like
wild.
this like pattern on it, so it can watch.
It was a big anxiety thing. Like is my kid breathing?
Yeah.
Like especially when they're like less than 6 months old.
So it can just alert you.
But like we didn't have that technology. Even my daughter's 7 now, so we didn't have that technology 6 years ago.
Yeah. So this little camera and this little waist strap, and it's like perfect. And it's only like the strap doesn't have any technology in it. It's just like a pattern. So it's kind of crazy. But even I was thinking about the tech when you're talking about it. Are they still big on VR? Because I felt like that was never going to take
not
off.
so much.
I felt like they tried to make
a
that
lot of AI. AI was the micromobility, and AI sort of owned the show.
If you put AI behind anything, venture capital.
I mean, but yeah, it's wild. But like even when I was there, I've never like been at a trade show and be like, I'm going to buy that. And I bought a little monopod / gimbal mount for a camera, I got one for a phone. But it's also got AI, so you just like make a signal at it and it follows you around. Like it could, like you can identify you and me, and it's just like if I move or if I lay back, it's keeping me centered in frame. It's spinning 360. It's looking at the sky. It's like, and I'm like, that's wild to have something that's that capable. And I'm down here filming tomorrow, and I'm like, let me just bring it down with me and see what it does.
The editing that it can do is pretty impressive too.
Yeah, I haven't
like as it starts
to
to like edit videos where you just put stuff in and it just like. Bless you.
Thank you.
Where it just like kind of takes over the video stuff. That's nice. That's a future I can.
Yeah,
I'm
I mean,
not opposed to.
I've never seen anything edit yet. Like Photoshop is getting very good at like AI being like, I'll just remove this whole thing. And I'm like, oh, that was actually really good. I've never seen it to the point where like I would trust it editing an entire piece for me. It may be good to rough cut, but then I still don't think I would trust it to be like, well, I think that shot was good. AI didn't. And that shot could have been very memorable. And it's not traditional media, but it's not traditional, like in Hollywood, they wouldn't use that shot. But for us, that's like gravy, like the corner of the shot of the security camera of something rolling into a tree.
Speaking of venture capital and things in the automotive world, have you seen Hoonigan, what they're going through?
I have not.
Well, they're like, in 2020, they were bought by Wheel Pros.
Yep. I didn't keep up, but you can fill me in. Then
so they're bought by Wheel Pros, and since your business guy sold businesses and stuff, Scotto and Ken sold it to Wheel Pros. Wheel Pros now changed their name to Hoonigan.
Okay.
No one originally pretty much works there anymore.
Okay.
And it's kind of this interesting thing where it's like, is Hoonigan still Hoonigan without Scotto, Hurt, and all those guys?
Yeah, I mean, and you're always going to have that. I mean, even like if Ken Block is gone, is Hoonigan going to survive?
Yeah.
And if you have these, it's Jason Bourne. When like there was how many Jason Bourne movies? Mm-hmm. There was 4 of them.
Yeah.
There was 3 with Matt Damon.
Been 20 Batmans.
And there was 3 with Matt Damon, and then 1 with some other dude. Mm-hmm. And like nobody looks at that as like a Jason Bourne movie because Jason Bourne was obviously Matt Damon.
I think people just worry about the authenticity of, it being a big multi-billion-dollar corporation now buying out what was kind of like this backwood kind of.
Yeah, I mean, you're always going to get that. And like you're always rooting for the guy to be successful, and then somebody becomes successful. And like look at Barstool. Barstool was bought out and then bought back.
I'm fine. Like I'm happy for Scotto and those guys. Like I have no problem them selling out for millions of dollars. I really don't have any problem.
Yeah.
I just wonder,
we should all be so lucky.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't think Scotto probably personally cares about the future of Hoonigan at this point anymore, and he shouldn't.
That's the whole thing. Like we do this because we enjoy it, but if somebody came in and like, look, I'm going to buy Super Speeders for $20 million tomorrow. Here you go. Yeah. All right, you can never be on camera as Super Speeders brand again. No problem. Like you do what you got to do. Like you could turn it into Walt Disney wants to buy it. It's all yours. Like I've got 0 issues with it because I will go do what I enjoy doing for fun, and I'll rebrand it, do something else if I enjoy continuing to make content. Yeah. Whether it's a podcast, whether it's just other videos on a different platform. I would never make another YouTube video if they wanted to write me a $20 million check.
For sure. And I understand like Ken, when he was still around, he was no like he sold brands. Like he owned DC Shoes at one point, sold out of that. Like he's sold brands before. Like I'm not surprised that he wanted to make an exit from Hoonigan. Like he built up a brand, and you make your exit, you ride off into the sunset, you live your life.
And that's the whole thing. Some people will never let that go, but like that's part of the life cycle of a business. Every business has a bell curve. Like not every business goes like this forever, and even Amazon will eventually not be the leading business in the world.
Jeff Bezos talked about that. His job is only to keep it alive as long as possible. Yeah, and he knows it's not going to be alive.
Yeah, and somebody else will come in because there'll be a changing dynamic, and that's
or TikTok or something along those lines.
And people have to recognize that, because like at a certain point, Amazon's overhead is going to be, they can't offer it as cheap as somebody else who's going to offer something else cheaper. So and then the customers are going to be like, oh well, why am I buying this iPhone from Amazon? Yeah, it's convenient, but this other company's also going to get it to me by tomorrow, and they're going to charge me 30% less.
Mm-hmm. And then these creator-run businesses are so tough. Like Hoonigan, of course, is great because it was kind of faceless in a way. But, you know, somebody like Garrett, who I'm very close with, of course, it's not faceless.
No, he's
a
the
massive brand, but it is not faceless, really.
Correct.
So it's tough. Like, how do you navigate that where if you don't pick up the camera that next day, the whole machine stops rolling? And
that's a big thing, and I've experienced this too, because I had to make a shift because I have two kids. My one kid's 11, the other's 7, and you're now about to start experiencing it. So is Garrett.
I got a 1-month-old.
Yeah, and Garrett's got the same thing. He's got
he's
7
about
or 8 months.
2 under 2.
Oh, so 2 under 2. That's a life changer right there. Because now it's like, Daddy, why are you going away again? Daddy, like it's not. You can't just live this run and gun life, and the next time you go to step on that gas, like driving Pikes Peak, you're like, oh, maybe I'll just back it out a little bit. And like what am I gaining by doing this? And it's just part of maturing and getting older. When we're younger, our hair's on fire, and when you have the kids and the family, it's like, is this worth disappointing my kid to go do? So I'll turn down gigs, or I'll turn down stuff that I would travel to, because like, all right, you're offering me this much money, but like, I'd rather just go to my kid's doing a recital at the school. So I'd rather go watch that than go do this. But if they obviously, we'll always do stuff for enough money. But at the end of the day, our tolerance goes up for what we're looking for, and then what we're willing to sacrifice. But that's just, it's part of aging and getting old and being part of a family, because you've got your wife and your child, and he's got.
But then when you have this machine that needs so much
fuel, you have to introduce. Well, that's the problem, and that's a big issue. A lot of like brands and things have, is they create so much overhead, and when the revenue starts dropping off, they start cannibalizing what's been created, and there's not much left in the end. Yeah. So being able to see that and like look out and see that is always very important, because if you're not growing, you have to mitigate how much you're spending, not like, we just have to go bigger, because then you take big risks, and those big risks may not pay off.
Yeah, and there's a lot of creators, of course, that have businesses that don't have their face attached to them, and they can build those pretty well, but then they still use themselves for marketing.
Yep, exactly.
But they don't realize, they're like, oh, I have this big business. It's like, yeah, but you're the marketer. Yeah. Like, it's nothing without like.
That's what my luggage is ultimately going to be. It's just going to be something where I'm marketing it, and I was talking with Shark Tank about going on Shark Tank.
Oh, that'd be cool.
But like, it just, I was a little too honest. And they're like, oh, this is like refreshingly honest. I'm like, yeah, I just see this as a marketing opportunity. I've got my network of people, so I can get this thing out here too, and that's very enticing. But you guys, it's like a little bit, it's like taking the elevator to the top floor to put the product on Shark Tank, and they're looking for like, oh, this was my grandfather's lifelong dream for me to bring his idea to market, and sadly he passed before he could realize that dream, and it's me carrying the torch for my grandfather. I'm like, nope, nothing like that. Like, couldn't find a suitcase I want, so I made my own. It cost me $60,000, so I figured I'm going to recover the money and sell it.
Well, they take 5%, don't they?
I don't care. Like,
something.
But again, like I am
doesn't
not.
Matter.
I am not in luggage because I have any passion for luggage. Mm-hmm. I am in luggage because I couldn't find a suitcase I wanted, so I spent a lot of money to build one, and it's going to solve a problem for a lot of people. So like if I can make money doing it, I'm an idiot to like, if I could have found that suitcase for $2,000 where it would normally be $300, I would have spent the $2,000 and not gone down this path. But it just didn't exist.
You wouldn't have designed your own luggage, because I'm sure that's
Zero
very
interest.
Fun to to manage.
But I mean, I'm also it's doing retail products. I'm like learning the whole process. Like I didn't know like sample labs existed. I didn't know where to start.
Yeah.
So I worked with this company called Rabbit Product Designs, and they build me like an attorney would. They build me like $500 an hour.
Ooh.
And it's just like, oh yeah, we did some market research. I'm like, I don't need market research. I'm gonna do it anyway.
Yeah.
So like, I just want to build the bag. Like, let's skip part 1 and get to part 2. But like, they already charged me $6,000 for part 1. Ooh, we made a slideshow presentation. Here's similar bags. I'm like, no, they're not similar. Like, just get me to the part where I'm making a bag. And then they went to a sample lab, and it's a sample lab that never made luggage. They make samples. And a sample lab, for example, it's like, I want to make a microphone stand. So they'll make a crude microphone stand and give it to you. Is this what you're looking to do? And then you'll refine that design, and then you can go into production eventually. So, but through that first bag that I made, I ended up meeting people in the industry and people that work and design for like super high-end, like $800 bag companies. And they started putting me in touch with other people, and now I've got the network of people that are actually doing it. So my stuff is getting built on the same production lines as the guys' $800 bags that you're paying for with fancy logos on them.
Yeah, that's a whole crazy world of actually like, because merchandise, like YouTuber merchandise, isn't really anything even similar to that.
Yeah.
Like you just have a design.
No, yeah, you
print
stamp it
like,
on a shirt. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think some people think it's similar. Like some people, like some delusional kind of people think they're kind of making the same level of like, these are my products. Like, what do you mean? It's a Gildan shirt. Like,
exactly. You're
we
going
all use
doing
the same shirt. Like, it's nothing special. But to actually like innovate, actually like start from nothing to something product is completely different world than we're all used to. And I grew up in clothing retail.
And much more expensive too.
Yeah, of course.
Because the trial and error, I was one step away from hitting the production line with the current bag, but I didn't design the zippers. And I'm like, all right, so let's just slot the production line, and then we'll get the zippers and we'll put them on. No, we got to make a finished product first to get approved before we could slot the time on the production line. So now I'm going like with the logo design and everything like that to get that done, to then get the sample made and then approve the sample, and then we can go into production.
What are those zippers that everybody ends up using, the YZZ or something like that?
Oh, I don't know.
There's like that one zipper that's on like everything, I'm pretty sure.
I'd have to look. The thing that people have been asking for is the TSA, like the zippers that they have the little circles that they can lock the zippers.
Okay.
But
yeah, I haven't traveled like a crazy amount via flight. I mostly travel by car around the country, so I'm not used to that.
It takes a long time to go by car, but I travel a lot. I mean, even last week from Tuesday to Friday, I was in Vegas. Then Monday to Wednesday this week, I'm here. Then Saturday, Sunday, I'm in Atlanta. And then Friday to the following Tuesday, I'm back down here for Daytona. Okay. So like that's 4 trips. I'm traveling more than I'm home.
Yeah. I was wondering like you've obviously owned quite a few cars over the last years. What do you think is like the one that got away, where it's like, oh man, those really went up in value?
I mean, a lot of the cars that I've sold really went up in value, from SLR McLarens to Saleen S7s. I've passed on Carrera GTs at $350,000. The cars that I've actually owned that have gone up in value, the Cobra R, 2000 Cobra R went up pretty significantly since when I sold it. But I mean, it's not. There's zero regrets, right? It's not like, oh yeah, that girl I used to date in high school got really hot. Yeah. Well, it wasn't meant to be.
Yeah, I don't think you regret it.
We had the time, yeah.
It's more just like, oh wow, that was crazy that happened.
I mean, my GT3, I made money on each and every one of these cars. My GT3, my Viper ACR, and my Cobra R, I bought all of them and sold all of them at a profit. So I got to drive them for years for free. And I'm not not driving them. I'm putting thousands of miles a year on each car. So I can never cry that I didn't win on every turn, because even like one of my 360 Spiders went up by $20,000 after I sold it. And but the cars that I did hold on to have also multiplied. I mean, I'm 60 grand into my first Supra is worth 4 or 5 times that now. Yep. And the only car that didn't really go up in value significantly is my Corvette. Is because it's superly highly modified, and if anything, it's got some brand value, so it'll get sold to a fan one day or whatever.
And C5s are still like, they're not. Yeah, you get C5s pretty easily.
Yeah, they're still relatively attainable, but it doesn't have the cult following as much as a Supra does or an RX-7 does, but the NSX tripled in value. My 458, well, I bought that while it was high, but it's still like it holds its value. Even the new cars I bought, the F8 I just sold, I bought it for MSRP and it sold for like 70,000 over. So, and that's keeping it for 2 years. So I got to keep the thing for 2 years, drive it for 2 years, and then sell it for $70,000 more.
Shoot, there's some people that were buying cars just like going to Porsche, get the
allocation
and then flip it.
But like I've never been like, if you're not willing to at least take ownership of the car, then you shouldn't be able to buy it.
Yeah.
Like if you're looking to just like put your name, like it's like the ticket scalpers. You have no intention of going to Taylor Swift. You shouldn't be buying that ticket.
Yep.
Like
unless it's like those big companies, then they scalp.
But
they scalp like 50, 80, 100, 200 tickets, whatever it is.
They buy half the allocation. They buy whatever they can with AI and computers to buy their way into the system.
Yep.
But it artificially raises the price of everything because you're creating an artificial demand. And that you're going to see with the Cybertruck. Because a Cybertruck, everyone's like, yeah, I'll give you a $50 deposit for a Cybertruck because when it comes out, if I could flip it and make $5,000, I'll do it. But now everyone's like, hey, who wants a Cybertruck allocation? Everyone's like, no, I'm good.
That was so funny. Like a few years ago, everybody was posting their allocations. Like, just set my refundable,
my fully refundable $50
deposit. And it's like, why are you bragging about
this? Big
this?
spender.
Doesn't mean you're doing anything. Yeah. Like anybody could have done that. The homeless guy could have probably swung that. Like, your $50 deposit. Yeah, that was always funny. I was thinking of exits though. Doug DeMuro, I was really excited to see his.
Yep, the cars and bids.
That's great. I mean, like that's like set, like kind of good. Like
and he's just fill me in. He did the cars and bids.
Yeah.
And does he do YouTube anymore now?
Yeah, he does YouTube, but then he sold like 40% of it for millions of dollars.
His YouTube?
No, just cars and bids.
Oh, just cars and bids. Okay.
So it's cool to see. Like I look at other creators and what they can do and their exits because it's kind of like a case study for what is going on in this space. And to see his exit after a year.
That was very quick. He got involved. It's funny because you don't think that these auction platforms are really going to go somewhere, but the auction platforms are better than the options. And I tried selling my Z06, my C8 Z06 on eBay, and I had like 2 non-paying bidders. And I'm like, we've gone through all this effort to then like I'm now sitting in the car for an extra month. I've listed it twice. These guys don't even reach out to me. There's no negative repercussions to them. And I'm like, it's very frustrating. So to solve that process and to have 99% of the sales be completed, there's more value there. As long as you get the eyeballs. And he had the YouTube channel that could generate the eyeballs and the buzz till at least people know that the platform existed. I guarantee there was probably 50 other auction startups that didn't go anywhere.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, even like he kind of put a big hurting, I would imagine, on Bring a Trailer because they were kind of the only real name in town to where if you have a nice luxury sports car or something rare to sell and to just compete with them was already big. But I think he's really going to push them out with cars and bids, which is pretty interesting. We'll see.
I mean, I think most of the big cars still go to BAT, but we'll see what happens. I mean, it's an ever-changing market, and whoever's got a competitive advantage in the auction space, I think it's whoever's pulling higher numbers. And they really solve that problem for eBay. eBay, you can snipe an auction, right? When you can have 3 guys, and I've lost a bunch of stuff where somebody sniped it for a great deal, and I'm like, well, I would have paid more than that. But when Cars and Bids started doing it, where Bring a Trailer, where if somebody bids within the last 2 minutes of the auction, it extends the auction. You're going to find out how much people are willing to pay. And that's going to squeeze every penny out of it. And then the fact that they're locking your credit card for whatever, 10% of the auction price, and you could be on the hook for 10 grand if you're doing a fake bid. And you give me 10 grand on each of these auctions that I had to relist, I'm okay with that.
Yeah, that's a success. I mean, if you keep your car.
Yeah, but like,
if you're
giving me 10 grand for wasting my time, but otherwise, like, it's frustrating. I get nothing. I got to go back to eBay for my auction fees. I got to relist the thing. and like all the interest that was just there is now gone. And like, you had all these people invested in like trying to win something. And I could have lost out on a $140,000 sale over some guy who bid an extra $10 with no intention of ever purchasing.
Yeah, eBay's in a weird spot with a bunch of things because they got hit pretty hard by the EPA for selling exhaust
emissions.
Anything really. So they're kind of in that tough spot. But then they're like putting all this money towards YouTubers, which kind of I don't understand.
Well, they're just trying
how
to
they
get
could be
people
fighting the EPA and also giving money to guys that modify their cars.
I mean, there's always going to be marketing budgets. It's funny that these large companies like eBay and even like Groupon at the time, they've just got such like errant leadership when it comes to like making the right decision that works in their favor.
Yeah.
And they're trying to protect themselves, but they're then sacrificing sales and protecting themselves, or sacrificing people wanting to list and work with them, which is what Groupon did. They really killed the amount of people that wanted to work with them by devaluing everything. And I've sold probably $7 or $8 million worth of stuff through Groupon when we were doing our test drives in the parking lots. Mm-hmm. And it was just one of those things that everybody would go buy, and I'd sell thousands of vouchers to go use. And they'd be like, all right, you have to use it by next year. But they never sent a reminder. So I put these dates up throughout the year. And like some people would come right away, and some people would like sporadically come in the summer, and there'd be plenty of availability because people weren't remembering to use it.
Yeah.
And then fast forward to the end of the year, hey, your Groupon's about to expire in 30 days. I get this rush of people, and I'm like, I can't take I've laid out more than enough inventory for everyone to use it, but I can't, if you don't send them reminders like, hey, there's a date here. Would you like to use it? Would you like to use it? And they're like, no. So we're just going to sell it for a specific date now. I'm like, well, you can't do that. Like, people are buying them for holiday gifts. I can't buy somebody a holiday gift and say on August 11th, you're going to go do this.
Yeah.
Like, and now they've decimated their sales. And I'm like, you've incorrectly solved the problem. Well, we can't send
Groupon anymore.
Yeah, you can't send more than one reminder email that the expiration is coming. I'm like, well, that's pretty silly then, isn't it? Like, because now all you're doing is now we're going from selling 20,000 of them to 4,000 of them. Mm-hmm. And it's just like, it's a very frustrating, and nobody wants to be locked into a specific date. If you say you could buy a movie gift certificate for somebody and they can go to the movie whenever they want, or any movie they want, whenever they want, in any location.
It's like a lot of people's like Patreon goal is like, I hope somebody just forgets about it.
Yeah.
I don't have a Patreon, but like I know a lot of people, like the goal is like you just sign up a lot of people and you just hope and assume that a lot of people just forget.
Yeah, no, I get it. But like, I mean, I like to give people value, and like whether you decide to exercise the value or not, like at least I'm going to produce it. So
yeah, you at least gave them that option as many times as possible.
Yeah,
so
I mean,
you were selling test drives of the supercars instead of like rentals. You were like selling.
We were doing like autocross. You get 3 laps, 3 autocross laps in a Ferrari or Lamborghini.
Okay, that's fun. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, and it's cool. But like then like they're selling it as like, oh, people do 100 miles an hour in a Lamborghini for $100. And I'm like, yeah, but they're not going to do 100 miles an hour. They do like 70, which is still fast in a parking lot. And they're cornering, they're doing everything. So it's a great experience, but it was also only $100. Mm-hmm. And then people are like, I thought it was going to be on a racetrack. What is this parking lot? I'm like, we've never advertised racetrack. Like, this says autocross. Autocross is in a parking lot. It says, here's the locations.
Where did he think he was showing up?
Yeah, if you go to the Sawgrass Mills Mall, what racetrack is at Sawgrass Mills Mall? Like, it's...
What, do you think you're going to Lime Rock? Like,
yeah, but that's the whole point. And then, like... you're only giving $100. I'm giving you a $300,000 car.
Yeah.
Like how far do you think $100 goes in a $300,000 car?
Yeah, that value is pretty good. I mean, it's tough to
argue that.
It's
a great experience for $100. And even then, Groupon was taking 40%, so I'm getting 60 per person.
Yeah, and it's such a better deal to go beat on somebody else's car, even if you have your car in the same autocross parking lot. I'd rather spend the $100 to beat on your somebody else's car. Yeah.
But at the end of the day, it was actually good because the big depreciation point on exotics is mileage. Mm-hmm. And now when I'm renting it out, I'm giving people 100 miles for say $2,000 a day. And so like you look at that and it's like, all right, it's $20 a mile in a perfect world. That's if they don't go over mileage because that'll reduce the rate. But the autocross, they're doing 3 laps for $60. So I'm getting and 3 laps is probably about a mile. So now I'm getting 60. I'm getting 3x my revenue and if they upsell and buy more laps, then I'm getting even more. But I'm getting 3 times the dollar per mile that I was when I'm just renting it out openly. And I'm getting more customers because I've got thousands of people standing in a parking lot waiting to go.
Now they're all sitting there looking at your signs and stuff and
Yeah.
all that kind of stuff. Did you rent or do you still rent a lot to like events and like things like that, not just like people?
I do a lot of corporate stuff. So like a lot of brands use us for stuff, marketing,
movie coming
promotions.
out,
Yeah, a lot of
like a
movies.
promotional
Yeah,
stuff.
but mainly it's still daily rentals is the predominant aspect of the business.
It seems interesting because, like, I'm from Long Island, so it seems like a interesting place over there to rent like something exotic.
I mean, if you think about exotic rentals, most of them are not for performance. Most people just want to look cool.
That's what I was kind of
Everyone
imagining.
thinks like, I'm such a good-looking guy. Why are women not flocking to me? It's because I don't have a Ferrari. Look at that troll over there with the Ferrari and all the girls that get out of his car. So like that's the missing piece. And like they do it, and if that's the confidence button that they need to go out and start talking to them, they go, hey, you like cars? You see this Ferrari I got here? Like if that's that confidence point that they need, then whatever. I'm the guy selling it to them.
In Vegas, it always made a lot of sense to me. That seems like it's a pretty fun place to like,
I
drive
mean,
a car out to like the canyon or
Yeah,
something.
still exactly. You're like me. You want to go drive in the desert,
Yeah.
like, but that nobody sees you in the desert.
I don't care to go drive down
exactly.
the main street or whatever it is.
But that's the big markets is like L.A., Miami, New York, where there is nowhere to drive.
Yeah.
But you're driving where people can see you.
Even like I see there's like videos all the time that'll pop up of like a rally that goes through like Broadway.
Yep.
And I'm like, that doesn't sound that fun.
It's not fun, but a lot of people with cars. It's the same reason the guy dresses up like a chicken. Like it's just so people look at you.
Yeah.
And they're not
rally
looking at
through
you. They're not
Broadway.
looking at like that's Cooper. So no, that's a guy in a chicken outfit driving a Lambo. And that's why they're looking at you. But that's why everybody wraps their cars. That's why everybody goes so crazy and puts smoke grenades out the window and everything. Because all you care about is having everybody be like, oh, look at that guy, like point and look and take photos of you.
Yeah, now like I told this to somebody the other day. I'm like, when I'm driving on the street, I don't want anybody to look over at me. I'd rather just drive my wife's little, whatever it is, Chevy Blazer. Nobody looks over. Nobody thinks anything of it. I can pull into spots easily. Like,
I mean, there's something nice about there's something nice about being recognized and being noted, like being seen in a crowd. But there's also something nice about just blending in.
yeah.
And that's even the adventure drives trips that we do. We have no stickers on the cars. We don't attract the attention from the cops. I mean, we've been doing that for now 8 or 9 years. And I mean, if we've seen 6 or 8 tickets over hundreds of thousands of combined miles, that would be a lot. And that's just generally somebody like just turn somewhere or they just get caught randomly. It's not there's never any like mass pullovers or anything like that because we've done something that raises attention because we've got all these cars, but like we're not indicating that there's something greater
It's not like
going
a
on.
rally where there's like thevery car
The
is wrapped
stickers
with
and and they're like,
stickers.
hey, look out, they're coming through New Mexico tomorrow, so be like BOL.
Yeah.
So-
It's funny because there's like those rallies that do that, and then there's like Cannonball where it's like, we'll tell you after it's done type of thing, which I've always been fixated on. Cannonball stuff.
I've
I got
never-
the 2539 up there.
Okay, yep. I've never been a Cannonball guy, only because I'm not an endurance guy. I feel like that's unsafe.
I mean, 25's not even that long.
No, staying awake for 25 hours straight is not.
With 2 people driving.
It's still like it's very, and you need a driver and a navigator.
Yeah.
So like you're either driving without a navigator. It's just like there's the risk reward there is not there for me.
But like I get when it was like 40 hours. Okay, that's a pretty serious endurance. But like 25, I'm like, shoot.
25 is like it's.
I got a
moving.
1-month-old. I'm up for 20 hours
Yeah,
anyways.
true. I mean that
Up and
gets
down.
easier.
Yeah. But yeah, I was like, 25, that's pretty quick.
Yeah.
Pretty impressive what Arnie did. And I don't know if there's anybody that's already beat that and hasn't said yet.
I think so. I think somebody else went out and beat. Like it's always like a movie. But it's one of those things. There's a small subculture of people that are interested in it, and they're very passionate about it. But then there's everyone else be like, why would you do that?
Well, there was a peak. Like COVID, when they did that, was a very good time.
Yeah,
to do it.
then
It's
everyone
hard
would
to
be like,
replicate
well, why would you want to like why would you want to count that time because it was done during COVID? Of
course.
Or like the Alex Roy does it in 33 hours and says nobody try this. I had spotter planes and this and that, and we were measuring the speed of the gas pumps. And like nobody's ever gonna beat this, so don't even try. And then like a guy will go rent a Mustang from Hertz and do it in 4 hours quicker.
Yeah.
By himself.
Well, even like Arnie was saying, there was like maybe 30 minutes to gain.
Yeah.
Like that's it. Like there wasn't because even if you look at like Google Maps, like quickest possible
Yeah.
to do it, there is like a limit.
No, I mean, there is, you could just go faster. I mean, the only thing is the faster you go, the more likely you are to potentially get caught. But if you treat the road like a genuine racetrack and like it was day after tomorrow or something like that, or I Am Legend where the roads are empty, like you'll be able to do it in 18 hours theoretically. But I mean, look what we do when we did the Silver State Classic. I mean, there's cars averaging 220 miles an hour over 100 miles through the desert.
Yeah.
So like anything is possible. It's at what point in time is the safety compromised, and is it worth taking that additional risk for what? Like,
yeah, there's a lot of risk to other people on the road that you kind of have to put out the window.
And you would have to go that extra, like you'd have to become extra dangerous, start passing on the shoulder and stuff to get around people. Otherwise, what do you just sit back and wait so you don't get the cops called on you? And when it's clear, then you accelerate again. But that will always have a certain level of impediment. If you were going like full blown, like there's going to be a bomb chasing us in our rearview mirror, then you're driving on the grass and you're doing all sorts of crazy stuff, not stopping for cops. And that's where that like sub 20 hours or something like that is possible in a crazed scenario.
Yeah, it's kind of insane to just think about the speed and the logistics that they had to go through to make that one perfect run happen. Because I often think about that too, like how far into it you get 10 hours in and you're like, we got to call it, we're done anyways.
Yeah.
Like, you can call it pretty quickly probably.
Yeah, I mean it's like anything, right? You set points and you're like, if we don't get to here by this point, we're not going to be able to make up enough time. But you can say like, all right, we lost an hour in Cleveland to that accident on the road, but we can make that up after Grand Junction. We can go faster, but after Grand Junction, the road gets bumpier, so we have to worry about going over 140 miles an hour, because if we go over 140 miles an hour, we may lose traction. Like
it seems like you've thought about it a little bit.
I've just driven all the roads.
It seems like you've had to have had visions of it a little bit, especially with the early YouTube days of like ticket challenges and stuff like that. I mean,
honestly, I've loved the rallies that we did, and we would sort of cannonball on the rallies, and then we would go pretty much as fast as we could. And while being safe, obviously, we're trying to be as safe as possible.
Yeah.
But the appeal of the endurance thing I never did it for me.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And it's because I don't like driving at night. The lights start to like strain my eyes. And if you've driven tired, you've hit the rumble strips, like everybody's done it, and it scares the crap out of you. And I'm like, why am I doing this?
And then you have to do it at 110 miles an hour.
And then you have to do it thinking that the adrenaline are like hopped up on coffee. But like, I don't know if this is worth saying, but like I've been in the situation where like you like close your eyes for a second, you're like, holy crap, I was just like literally sleeping and driving.
Yep.
And I mean, everybody's gotten to that point, and I wouldn't want to put myself in a situation for nothing, like literally for like internet points. Like I see no value in that. If it was like the guy who holds the record never has to work another day in his life and he gets $50 million a year for the next, like different story. Like it's but then I'll go and get like injections of caffeine and like pee in a bag if I have to, and put a 3,000 gallon fuel cell on the roof or whatever you have to do to get this done. But it's got to be worth it. And to me, to get a trophy that I could just go buy myself anyway, amongst a small group of people who care, it's never really appealed to me.
Yeah, the people that are interested in it is definitely a
very small subculture.
Small group of people.
Yeah.
Definitely dwindling,
Yep.
I would say a little bit, because the movie came out in like the 70s.
Yep.
And I was born in the 90s, so it's not...
I mean, even then, the idea of having a race is, but then everyone's like, well, now I went fastest coast to coast, which is the shorter route from like Amelia Island to like San Diego. And I'm like, well, now what? Now who? Well, the guy who got the New York to, and like the New York coast to coast thing, you're going from like Midtown Manhattan. Wouldn't you want to just start at like the George Washington Bridge or start at Montauk? Yeah. Like, why wouldn't you start at the furthest point on the East Coast to go to the furthest point on the West Coast? Now we're picking some like arbitrary points and saying like, well, this is where this guy started, so now I just got to beat that. Like, and well, this road wasn't even available at the time, so you can't take that road. You got to take this route, otherwise it doesn't count because it's cheating. But then like going on COVID should be cheating then. Like, so like at what point in time for guys that are making up the rules to be like, this is why I won, this is why you won. it's like the modifying cars thing. Well, I've got the fastest Corvette. Well, no, I've got the fastest cam-only Corvette with stock interior. And like,
Micro record chasing.
yeah, like, and it's just like, at what point in time here, everybody gets a trophy. Like, let's just all have a good time and like not worry about who's faster.
It's funny you say Montauk because that's where I'm from.
Yeah.
And it's the end.
Yeah,
the end of the
it's
world.
Yeah.
There's a little loop there. That's where Long Island
Yeah,
is.
you're the first ones to get attacked. So
Yeah, that was us. There's all the Air Force bases up there and stuff, all decrepit now.
Yeah.
Great driving roads.
Yeah.
You're definitely going to hit a deer if you try to go very fast. That's pretty common on anywhere on Long Island. But yeah, well, that's about it, man. What? Anything else you got? Anything you want to talk about, promote? Anything going on with you?
no, I mean, I'm just here to have a Red Bull and
Hang out
conversation. Yeah, just say what's up. And I'm doing some Range Rover thing tomorrow. There's a company that modifies Land Rovers and sells them south of Orlando. So they brought me down here. So I was like, you know what? And the further away you go, like 2 hours doesn't seem that far. But when you're driving, you're like, wow, this is a really long way away.
Yeah, it's a trip. Florida's not small.
No, I know, because I live down in Miami. But it's today the traffic and the rain made it a little frustrating.
I-4 is pretty horrible.
Yeah, but I'm happy to be here, and it was great to check the place out and see the race cars and see the podcast. So
Thanks, man. I appreciate you coming out, and I know you get out of here, go hang out with Chris Fix.
Yep.
And won't take too much more of your time, but follow him, Super Speeders Rob, on all platforms. I usually ended off with trying to promote who's ever with me. So Super Speeders Rob, anything else you need to?
I've got Adventure Drive, so if you're interested in going for a cool driving trip and you don't like stickers and wearing chicken outfits, then it'll be a good time. We're doing a bunch of cool trips this year.
No chicken outfits allowed?
No, I mean, everybody be looking at you pretty funny.
Yeah.
But then I've got Flipside Luggage is the luggage company I'm starting. That's in its infancy, so you can watch along for that or change your travel routine. That's another option. Then if you want to rent a car, we've got Gotham Dream Cars up in the New York tri-state area, and we're happy to help if you're looking to get behind the wheel of a fancy exotic car.
Very cool. Well, thanks, man. Appreciate you coming on, and anytime you're around, definitely come visit.
Absolutely.